So joining us to talk more about all of this is a SpaceX shareholder. That's Chad Anderson, the founder and CEO of Space Capital. And Chad, we've been talking to you throughout this whole process before the company came public. So you're a shareholder. Are you guys selling any of your shares today? Is there any nice trinket you've had your eye on? And today is the day you get to cash out and buy that thing.
Yeah, so look, the float is going to 3x today. Some of our shares are available, and the lockup's expiring. We will distribute shares to our underlying investors, but personally, I'm not planning on selling mine. I'm very excited about the company and where this company is going.
How many of your underlying investors have said, we want to cash out some of our shares?
I think for the most part, people have been very bullish. I mean, we've actually had, so the secondary, this is a company that stayed private for a very long time.
Yes.
And the secondaries market was actually very active. And we had opportunities to sell multiple times over the last few years. And internally as a management team, we have advised not to do that. And our investors have backed the company the entire way. So we have, it's not just us, it's our underlying investors that remain pretty bullish on the company.
Pretty bullish, but sorry to hammer this. Is anybody in who are your shareholders selling? Like, has anyone opted to do? Has anyone requested?
Not. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do personally, but I am not aware.
Okay. Yeah. But through the fund, they're not doing it. Gotcha. Yeah. And it is interesting to see the stock up today. I mean, we knew that this was coming. And so we had a lot of pressure on the stock going up to today. But it is interesting now that this is possible to see the shares moving higher.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great reasons for that. On the lockup side, I mean, look, the float is going to 3x today. That's great. I mean, for early employees who have built the most valuable private company in history, this gives them access to liquidity, and I think some of them will sell. So you got natural sellers meeting long-term buyers, because you've got, think about it, institutions that want to build a position here at size literally have not been able to do that because there hasn't been enough float. So I think actually, that this is a great moment where natural sellers are meeting buyers, and we'll see what happens. But I think there's a lot of demand for this stock, and a company that is one of the most valuable public companies in the world with sort of startup growth prospects.
And it's also been interesting, and our Jared Blickery is going to give us more details on this later, but Vanda Research has come out with some numbers showing that even as the stock has been going down, there's still a lot of retail interest, in particular, in the name. Why do you think that it has sort of caught the imagination of retail investors in particular?
Well, so I don't think we were expecting big deviations from expectations, 7 weeks after their IPO, but we were wrong. They beat on every line. So the business is booming. Not only that, this is a company that is making significant revenue, growing at a great clip, and investing significantly in the future. And so when I said, startup growth prospects, that's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. This is not a company that's, got something that it invented 20 years ago that it's trying to, wring out as much value as it still can. This is a company that is, the core space and connectivity business is basically funding its own growth and then funding its investments into Starship, which is going to enable all types of new future markets. And then the AI build out, they've got the largest war chest. They raised $100 billion for exactly this reason, to invest in the infrastructure of the future. And so when you start thinking about the investments that they're making, mm-hmm. And the markets that they're going to be powering going forward with AI, robotics, humanoid robotics, and autonomous vehicles on mm-hmm. the connectivity side.
Oh, wait, they don't own that stuff yet. Does that imply that you think they are going to buy Tesla?
I think that SpaceX owns the pipes. So gotcha. All of the connectivity is going to run through Starlink.
Gotcha. Whether they buy Tesla
whether or not. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the earnings. So let's dig into the earnings a little bit. It looked like the market maybe wasn't happy with the capex. I mean, as we know, certainly SpaceX is not alone in that regard, and they're not spending nearly as much as some of the other hyperscalers. What did you make of that move? And do you think, is that what was going on? Was it the anticipation of the lockup? Was it the capex? What do you think was up there?
Yeah, I don't think this is a SpaceX or sector, like space sector specific. I think this is really just a re-rating market-wide of the AI capex build-out, right? Because space companies, at least as of this morning, were not following the same sort of movement that SpaceX was. SpaceX was following the movements much more of these other hyperscalers and the people who are doing the big AI build-outs, right? And so I think that there's some nervousness about where things are going because you had these models. Everyone was excited about the models, and then suddenly it's, wait a second, there's some headwinds here, right? That closed models are basically, we've got a lot of push from big tech companies pushing for open weight models. There's a lot of competition from China. So we don't really know where the models are going to land. And every quarter there's like a new leader, right, on the leaderboard. And so where are models going, and is that where the value is going to accrue? I think people are starting to realize that it might not be where it happens. But AI is going, at least in our perspective, in one direction. This is a massive opportunity, and so the value is going somewhere else. It's going in the applications that are leveraging these models, these frontier models, and building applications, and also in the infrastructure that the intelligence runs on, both of which SpaceX is a big player and investing very heavily into. And so that's what makes me bullish on, again, not just like the numbers and the growth, but also the direction of the company and where this company's going.
So something I asked another analyst yesterday, I'm curious to get your take on. When you think about the future of SpaceX and building out data centers in space, once it gets the whole flywheel going and gets Starship to where it wants it to be able to carry those payloads more regularly and heavier payloads, how do you view the enormous build out of terrestrial data centers in terms of how it fits into that? Why do that when if your real differentiator is going to be space data centers?
Well, I think the real differentiator is all of it. And so it's and that's why it's all of the above, right? And so what we've got here is SpaceX, one of the most amazing, capable teams in the world that have basically rebuilt the entire space economy, is built on top of their Falcon 9 launch vehicle. They came in and looked at launch and access to orbit from a first principles perspective and completely rewrote the playbook. And now they're doing the same thing in terrestrial AI data centers. I mean, if you listen to Jensen Huang and others talk about what SpaceX is capable of doing, they can build these things out in 20 days that would take other companies years to do. And so they're producing compute at a better, faster, cheaper than anyone else because they're basically taking their team of rocket scientists and applying it to AI data centers. They're reimagining it. And they said on their earnings call that by doing the work of understanding how they're going to build these AI sets, they're actually helping them rethink how to do their terrestrial ones. And so they have a completely new architecture that's enabling them to do these things better, faster, cheaper. And they're also applying it to telcos, and they didn't give us a lot of those details.
Well, okay, so I wanted to ask you about that too. When they talk about potentially everybody being connected via Starlink, right now the infrastructure just doesn't exist to do that. And presumably there would be a lot of money that would have to be spent because you need a tower to connect to the phones that we have today, or they would need to partner with somebody. So do you see that as a realistic possibility in the shorter term, longer term? Do you want them to even do that? Does that matter if they, do they have to have a huge reach when it comes to that? How do you think about that?
There's a lot of dynamics at play here. And when Starlink first rolled out, everyone said, okay, well, that's going to be great for rural customers who don't have another option, right? But then they pushed much more suburban and then urban. And we have our offices just down the street here in Manhattan, and we have Starlink on our roof, right? So there are limitations to doing it purely through Starlink and satellites.
But it's not on your phones, or is it on your phones?
It's coming. So I mean, I have connectivity to give me SOS messages currently in dead zones and things like that. But no, this is the next phase. So you need much more capable satellites to go direct to cell. And that's what these V3 satellites are going to do, in that they just tested in their Starship test, and they're going to launch the operational satellites on the first orbital operational flight of Starship later this month.
Another question for you. How much do you pay for that versus a conventional telecom?
It's very comparable.
Yeah.
But the opportunity here is not just in consumer, and it's how they're delivering connectivity wherever you are, whether it's direct to cell or direct from satellite to a tower, that they have reimagined and re-architected in a new way, and basically providing you connectivity wherever you are so you don't have to think about how many bars you have. And then the big picture is how the massive growth in connectivity when you start to think about humanoid robotics coming online, humanoid robots coming online, when you start to think about autonomous vehicles, and all of the bandwidth and connectivity that these robots and machines are going to need, it's way more than the current market today. So they're building the infrastructure to be a major player in this market that is massively growing. And this is just one of several markets that they're playing in.
Right. Okay. Chad, good to see you, as always. Thank you.